It's ironic that I'm talking about this a little bit this week because I feel like I was able to observe both ends of the spectrum of really wonderful partnering with families this week and very poor partnering with families this week. So yeah, I had a lot of fun putting this together and reading some of the literature that is out there on parent involvement and parent engagement. So this is my best attempt at sharing some of the highlights of what's in the literature with you. So, okay, Lindsay, next slide. There's my objectives today are to talk about what parent engagement is, why it leads to better outcomes for autistic students. There is a framework of parent involvement that was developed by a woman whose last name is Epstein, and an adaptation of it specifically for students with autism with an IEP that I want to share with you, which has a ton of ideas for practice. And the last part is just to understand some of the barriers for parent involvement and ways that you could potentially overcome them. Next slide, Lindsay. So in the literature, there's a number of different studies out there that often use the term parent involvement or family engagement interchangeably. Some of the definitions that I found for parent involvement involved activities that do involve the school and family, usually with the goal of supporting academic achievement or learning outcomes. And they like to categorize activities as either being school-based or home-based. And in some school districts, activities for parent involvement skew toward a lot of them happening in the school, and the parents are invited in. But there are some school districts out there that also try to balance more home-based activities for parent involvement. So just to put it out there, there's both kinds. Family school partnerships refer to a collaborative, family-centered homeschool relationship, really focusing on the relationship between the school staff and the family, the parents, the caregivers. And then family engagement is another term that you'll see in the literature that highlights the interactive and dynamic process for parent participation in their child's learning, because it is a dynamic thing and it can be more involved at different points of their education. For students with autism, when the IEP meetings happen, then we get a lot more family engagement, looking for assessments, that kind of thing. But I'm hoping after today we can talk through a number of ways that we can keep that family engagement going throughout the school year. Next slide, Lindsay. In the gen ed environment, it has been shown that family involvement leads to increased student academic achievement. And that's been proven with improved test scores, better grades, attendance, higher homework accountability, and even positive student motivation and attitude about schoolwork just by involving parents with the school activities, both in school and outside of school. But next slide, Lindsay. This can also be true for our students with autism. The literature would say that families that are engaged in school activities, those students, when they look at behavior reduction with behavior plans and those kinds of things, when the family is involved, there's a greater magnitude of reduction in behavior challenges. Everybody's on the same page, implementing the same strategies. That's been pretty well documented. But there's also greater generalization of those treatment gains from the school environment where they're learning those skills to the home environment, community, increased continuity in intervention programs. Same things are happening in school and the community with other care providers when the parent is involved. It also can have a really important impact on the parent in improving their level of satisfaction. It can decrease parent stress levels just by having that interaction with the school district in a really positive way and improving those school-parent relationships. And we see more effective strategies for resolving problems in the school. Those are all things that have been pretty well studied. Next slide, Lindsay. So I tell you that because that's the why, right? We really want our students to have positive outcomes. The hard part sometimes is the how. So a lady named Joyce Epstein put together these 6 kind of frameworks or categories for different types of involvement. The first one is just around parenting skills. Then we have communication, which is always important with parents, volunteering, learning at home, decision making, and collaborating with the community. So I'm going to talk about each one of these types of involvement and then ways that the school districts can work together with parents to within each one of them. So the first one is around parenting, and the school district can help all families establish home environments to support children as this as students and to support learning and IEP goals. So that's the part of it that can be tailored for students on an IEP. The schools can help, this can help schools know their families, including the family's values, backgrounds, and skills. It's really important at IEP meetings and beyond to understand the cultural parts that are really important for families to incorporate into their child's learning, the values for that family, and a lot about their background. And it's also a really great way to integrate knowledge of families at school and in practice to support consistency and collaboration across settings. From my own experience, it's really great for the school to know the things that my child likes to do, the things that our family does together, and that we find really important to do together. And then they can incorporate that into different lessons, into different readings, into some of the social skills that they're trying to teach her to do. They love getting that kind of information. So this is just one of the ways that they can do that. Next slide, Lindsay. I think this is kind of the in practice piece. So what this can look like is collaborating with parents to brainstorm activities for home and school that can support IEP goals and child learning. Parent education and other workshops that the school district can put on, or training for parents on special education processes, the IEP, a 504, any of those things, related services, and specific interventions. And I put in here that school districts could leverage IPOL because they have some really fantastic trainings put together that they can come to your school and put on that are all about the IEP process, different interventions, any of those things. IPOL already has some of those resources, and they like to come out and work with the school and the community to put on those kinds of workshops. Parenting in practice can also look like helping your school special education team understand the parents' view on disabilities and special education, as well as their priorities, goals, expectations, and dreams for their children. So think about different ways that you can put on workshops or work together with parents to brainstorm those things in a one-on-one setting. If possible, that back and forth communication can just be beneficial for everyone. Next category, Lindsay, is communication. Communication is key to building trust with parents. And in this category, designing effective and flexible forms of school to home and home to school communications about what's happening at school, about progress, and about the whole special education process. Like, hey, we have assessments coming up, or this is your child's progress monitoring report that's coming home, and we want to know if you have any questions about it. That communication is key. One of the things that I've leveraged is a back and forth communication log in a way that's super easy for the school staff to fill out. So we actually have like a duplex copy that goes home that has all of my child's special, IEP goals on there. And then a little bit of the information that I want to know as mom, like around toileting and eating and social skills. And every day one of these comes home, and they keep the top copy for the school, and then the bottom copy comes home for me. And that's how I like to get information. And the school is happy because it keeps track of her IEP goals at the same time that I'm getting communication that they're actually being done and measured. When you're talking to parents, it's important to not put a lot of jargon in there. In the field of education and special education, we have a ton of acronyms and we have a ton of jargon. And so, as much as possible, we want to keep it in parent-friendly language, so that everybody understands what's going on and they don't have to ask questions. Take the time to work with families and individualize the communication based on their preference. If they're an electronic family and they want it in like a Google document that everybody adds to and everybody can view, then lean into that strategy. If it's handwritten, that's fine. If they want communication daily versus how often do they want it, that's just a good question to talk through with families to see what they prefer and what is that information that needs to go back and forth. What is critical for the family to know, especially for students like mine who are nonverbal maybe and can't tell the parents what their day looked like. I also love it when they send me pictures of things that were amazing that happened at school. So just think about the fact that their kid can't tell them what happened and maybe take the opportunity to show them in a picture. And then make sure you're checking in with families to ensure understanding and answer any questions that they might have. In practice, next slide, Lindsay. This looks like weekly conversations with each parent in their preferred format. And I put even those you don't like. It's easy as school staff to avoid certain parents that maybe you don't enjoy interacting with, or you have opinions about. But it's really important to build trust through that conversation, being really transparent about what's happening with their child, progress they're making, any ways that you could provide information on what's working to the parent so they can also implement that in the home setting, and solicit information about what's working at home so that maybe you can implement that at school. Sharing child progress and work in the school setting is a big one for me. I want to know that my kiddo's making progress. And I also, I want to see what that looks like and how did they get that win, and even a small win. I love to celebrate those little successes. So one of the things on my communication sheet, now it's 2 pages, but is celebrations. What things went well that day? Did she stop in the hallway and say an exchange with a peer? Whatever it happens to be. I love those little tidbits and anecdotes about things that she did throughout the day. So keep that in mind. Sometimes weekly folders are leveraged for some parents in other school districts of the special education notices or memos. Make sure those are translated for families that English is not their first language. Again, eliminating jargon and anything you can do, writing notes to support parent understanding of what's happening, particularly for parents where English isn't their first language. And then follow up on important documents with a phone call. I love hearing from the school, and anytime they call, I take that phone call. Next one, Lindsay. So the third area is around volunteering. This can be hard for parents of special education students, but we can figure out ways that this can happen. So thinking about recruiting and organizing parent help and support for the school and for students, recognizing family circumstances and understanding their level of participation or involvement, giving space for families to contribute to their child learning outside of school-related activities, and then learning about, learning from, and acknowledging the contributions that families make to learning outside of school. It is not a race to see who can take credit for the child learning that skill. Sometimes you've got to say, oh, that's amazing that child learned that outside of school. We cannot wait to get that child generalizing that skill in the school setting. So when possible, try not to be a credit hog and give props where they're due. Sometimes those after-school providers of behavior intervention or ABA services or whatever, speech and language, OT, they have big breakthroughs too. So it's important to acknowledge the wins that they're having and being practicing humility and asking, like, what did they do to get that big breakthrough? And is there a way that we can do it? I don't know everything as a provider, so teach me what happened in that speech session that made it go amazing. In practice, that looks like potentially a parent listserv, parent support group, or other structure to allow for that parent-to-parent sharing and connection. That shared experience, that shared lived experience that parents have, especially parents of kiddos with developmental disabilities like autism, is crucial to feel connected. Like somebody else experienced the same thing that I did. And my feelings are valid, and I can learn from them, and we can together support each other. And I put in parentheses there special education PTA organizations. The school district that I graduated from back in New York has a special ed PTA, and those parents volunteer together, and they actually support the special ed programs in the school with fundraising, with organizing these kinds of parent workshops. And there's a lot of parents who would like to get involved more in the school, and this allows them to really connect with their community of other parents. So think about maybe establishing a special ed PTA in your school district. Some also leverage parent ambassador or match programs where parents can connect with other parents, and they have like almost a mentorship program. So like parents who have gone through the IEP process and whose students are like in high school or the 18 to 22 program, they mentor parents who are just coming into the developmental preschools or early childhood programs, so that if those parents have questions, they can feel supported or be able to draw on the experience of parents whose children are older or aging out. And then weekly conversations with each parents where you're having that back and forth and sharing the good things and not just the challenging things or those behaviors that are cropping up. It's really good to balance out phone calls that are good with phone calls that are bad. Because if a parent only gets phone calls for challenging behavior, their blood pressure goes through the roof when they see the school caller ID come up. Sorry. Okay, next slide, Lindsay. Learning at home. Think about providing information and ideas to families about how to help students at home with either IEP goals, curriculum-related activities, decisions, and planning. And then providing frequent information and ideas of how to support those IEP goals at home. Brooke, this is the same Barbie that you have in your room, the Brooke Barbie. This is just another one, okay? Why don't you go play with the one you've already got open in your room, okay? Okay, sounds good. Then ask families questions, learn about their values and preferences at home, and work with the family to incorporate those maybe into the school context as much as possible. And in practice, what this might look like is, next slide, Lindsay. Information for families on the specifics of practices and strategies used at school. So what evidence strategy did you use at school? Was it a visual schedule? Was it reinforcement? Was it shaping? Were we slowly prompting those things? Teaching those parents what it was with like an in-depth explanation. But there's also some really great handouts that you can get from different places about those different evidence-based strategies and how to implement them. Ask parents to get information from home activities. How's it going at home with teaching your kiddo how to tie their shoes? Did you have any breakthroughs? Those kinds of things. And really collaborating with parents to work adapted versions of like in-class activities in the gen ed environment, and then practicing together on implementing new strategies. The next practice, Lindsay, is on decision making. And in the school environment, include parents, especially parents of special ed, on decisions in the school. Take into account kids with special ed. Think about developing parent leaders, advocates, and representatives in school and on the special education team. And then please include all parents' voices, values, culture, and strengths when you're making decisions at the school level. Instructional decisions and especially, involving parents in deciding those student goals and any policies that the school is making as well. And in practice for kids with autism or special education IEPs, that might look like having active parent organizations, support groups, advisory councils, or committees for parent leadership at the school level, and soliciting input, making sure they have a seat at the table where decisions are being made. And in IEP meetings, please make sure that you're encouraging parent advocacy and input. That means sometimes prompting that parent input and validating their expertise and role on the team. And please advocate for parents, teach them how to advocate for themselves. There's some really great books out there. One is called From Emotions to Advocacy, and that's a really wonderful book about understanding the special ed process. And I love it when school districts give that book out or information about the IEP process, so parents can feel like they're being heard and listened to. And please ask them what their fears are, and then explain the ways that you're going to address those fears for their child. The last one is collaborating with the community. So through this lens, think about identifying and integrating resources. So those services in the community, like different agencies, Voc Rehab, like all of the different things, the Disability Action Center, things that are going on in the community that we can leverage to strengthen school programs, those relationships between home, school, and community, so that the child is getting the benefit from that relationship. Connecting families with those activities. They might not even know that the developmental disabilities program is out there. They might not know how to get Katie Beckett Medicaid. They might not know that they can get speech and OT through outpatient. Any kind of those activities, therapies, that there's a program in the summertime for kiddos with IEPs to do whatever it is, reading programs. We have in our community put on by our physical therapist different bike groups, hiking groups. They do all sorts of different activities. But sometimes families don't know that those opportunities are out there in the community. The school lunch program, the library summer reading program, the Learn to Swim program, connecting families with all of those opportunities can be super helpful just in collaboration with the community. So in practice, I've already listed some of them, but giving parents information about those activities, and any of them, especially that link to like an IEP goal or an area of interest that you know a student has, like your child loves robotics and building Legos. There's this amazing 4-H program that's doing robotics that maybe they could be a part of, and here's a flyer on it. So looking for those opportunities is a really great way to implement it in practice. Attend community events as school staff that are of interest and importance to families. Familiarize yourself with those things that are going on, especially disability or cultural specific celebrations, programming, any other activities. Just knowing what's happening and attending some of those events can be really helpful to build those relationships with families. And then team together with families to facilitate between special ed and the family's community connections, so that we're building that whole network for the student. Next slide, Lindsay. On the parents' part, sometimes there's a number of barriers to parent involvement. And I started with trust here, because sometimes trusting the school, especially if trust is ever broken, can be a really big barrier that I feel like you can overcome with increased communication and doing what you say you're going to do. And more of these kinds of practices that I just talked about. Communication, thinking about that preferred method for the family, sending positive notes, not just negative ones. Time can be a big barrier, both for you as educators and for parents. So think about being intentional to make time in your schedule for those interactions, even when you want to avoid them, because that relationship between the parent and the school is critical for that student's success. Resources are another one. Look for low-cost options. Capacity, thinking about professional development, ways that you can increase your staff's knowledge of building those interactions and those collaborations with families. Language, transportation, knowledge can all be barriers that we have to work at overcoming. There's an organization called National Network of Partnership Schools. And if you Google that, it's a really great resource if you need ideas on building interactions with schools. They have very specific ways that different schools within that partnership network have targeted building family engagement and family involvement. So it's a really great place to go if you need any ideas. And I think that was my last slide. So the last one, just key points. Thinking about family involvement, it has a positive outcome for students with autism. That's evidence-based. There are 6 types of involvement, and we talked about different ways that we can increase that involvement, specifically for students with autism who might be on an IEP. Does anybody have any questions?
Julie, this was fantastic. Thank you. So if anyone wants to unmute or put their questions or comments in the chat, we can do that. I just wanted to say I did have a question about why Barbie was in the box, and that was answered midway.
I got 3 of them. One I gave to her, one because my son says that I need to keep one mint in box, and one's for a little girl in the school district that I work in.
Nice, thank you.
Oh, the last resource.
Yeah.
It's on the slide.
The National Network of Partnership Schools.
Yeah.
We'll get a link for that in the chat.
Okay.
What other questions do we have? I wonder if you have a couple minutes, if anyone wants to share if you've seen some of the examples that Julie offered, what that looks like in practice within your school districts or potential challenges. Megan, I find that schools do not want to collaborate with us, community and center services.
Yeah, that's unfortunate. It would be of benefit to the children, which is really who we need to keep in the forefront, if they would partner with them. I've seen some school districts have like a little fair for new students or new families that all of the different community organizations, community centers, and agencies have a table or a booth, and they kind of do a sharing of resources or what their agency or community organization can provide to students with disabilities and their families. And that was a really successful thing that the school district kind of helped to organize, particularly for preschool students and those younger grades. Sometimes the school just needs somebody to spearhead it and organize it. And our school district leveraged some of us outspoken parents to come and help organize that.
Well, Julie, thank you so